In the heart of London, on a quiet residential street where celebrities sought anonymity, a single gunshot would shatter more than just the morning silence. The execution was so precise, so calculated, that even 2 decades later, the truth remains buried beneath layers of official silence and unanswered questions that challenge everything the public was told. Before starting, subscribe to never miss another spine-chilling case. It was April 26, 1999, just before 11:30 in the morning, on Gowan Avenue in Fulham, London. The tree-lined street embodied the kind of understated elegance that attracted Britain's media elite. Victorian terraced houses stood shoulder to shoulder, their white facades gleaming in the spring sunlight, while cherry blossoms drifted across well-maintained gardens. Jill Dando, the nation's most beloved television presenter, had just returned to her home after what should have been a routine morning. The 40-year-old woman had spent the night at her fiancé's house in Chiswick, but something had drawn her back to Gowan Avenue that morning. Official reports state she needed to collect mail and faxes, yet neighbors would later recall seeing her car parked outside much earlier than the timeline suggested. The presenter approached her blue front door, keys in hand, unaware that someone had been watching her movements with methodical precision. What happened next would become one of Britain's most perplexing murder cases, a puzzle that would consume investigators for years and leave more questions than answers. The attack came without warning. A single shot to the head, fired at point-blank range against her front door. The weapon pressed so close to her left temple that powder burns marked her skin. The bullet, a rare 9mm cartridge modified in an unusual way, had been altered to expand upon impact, ensuring maximum damage. This was not a crime of passion or a random attack by an unstable individual. Mrs. Helen Dobell, an elderly woman who lived across the street, became the key witness to events that defied conventional explanation. She reported hearing what sounded like a car backfiring, followed by the sight of a man walking calmly away from Jill's house. The figure she described stood approximately 6 feet tall, with dark hair and a distinctive gait that suggested military or professional training. He moved with purposeful composure, showing no signs of panic or haste, but Mrs. Dobell's account contained details that investigators found increasingly troubling. She insisted that moments before the shooting, she had noticed the same man standing perfectly still beside a parked car, staring directly at Jill's house for an extended period. His behavior suggested intimate knowledge of the presenter's routines, yet official investigations never established how an unknown assailant could have acquired such detailed information about her movements. The weapon used in the attack presented its own mystery. Ballistics experts determined that the modified ammunition was extremely rare, typically available only to specialized military units or professional assassins. The bullet had been altered using techniques that required considerable expertise and access to equipment not available to ordinary criminals. More disturbing still, the cartridge casing was never recovered from the scene, suggesting the killer had planned for evidence removal with meticulous attention to detail. Detective Chief Inspector Hamish Campbell, who led the investigation, discovered that Jill had received several anonymous phone calls in the weeks preceding her death. The calls came at irregular intervals, always from different numbers, with the caller remaining silent before hanging up. Phone records showed these calls originated from locations across London, suggesting a coordinated surveillance operation rather than harassment by a single individual. The investigation took an unexpected turn when detectives examined Jill's professional activities in the months before her death. Her work on the BBC's Crime Watch programme had brought her into contact with some of Britain's most dangerous criminal cases. Several ongoing investigations involved organized crime syndicates with international connections, and Jill had been scheduled to present segments on cases that remained classified within certain law enforcement circles. Of particular interest was a story Jill had been researching about arms trafficking through Eastern European networks. Her producer confirmed that she had been asking detailed questions about weapons, smuggling routes, and had requested access to classified police files. The presenter had also made contact with several former intelligence operatives seeking information about criminal organizations with ties to foreign governments. Barry George, a local man with a history of mental health issues, was eventually arrested and convicted for the murder. Yet, the case against him contained inconsistencies that troubled legal experts and investigative journalists. The primary evidence consisted of a single particle of firearms residue found on his clothing discovered months after the shooting. Forensic specialists noted that the particle was so minute it could have been transferred through secondary contact or environmental contamination. George's conviction was later overturned on appeal, and he was acquitted in a retrial. The jury found that the evidence presented was insufficient to prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt. This left the investigation back where it started, with no credible suspect and a growing list of unanswered questions about the true circumstances of Jill's death. The crime scene itself yielded anomalies that investigators struggled to explain. Despite the shooting occurring in broad daylight on a residential street, no other witnesses reported seeing the gunman. The lack of additional sightings seemed improbable given the time of day and location. Several neighbors mentioned feeling an unusual quiet that morning, as if the normal sounds of traffic and pedestrians had somehow diminished in the hours before the attack. More puzzling was the discovery that Jill's mobile phone had received a text message just minutes before her death. The message, which was never disclosed to the public, originated from an untraceable number and contained a single word that investigators deemed significant enough to classify. Phone company records showed the message was sent from a location that moved rapidly across London, suggesting it was transmitted from a vehicle traveling at high speed. Security cameras in the area experienced simultaneous malfunctions during the critical time period, leaving investigators without visual evidence of the attack or the perpetrator's escape route. The technical failures affected multiple systems operated by different companies, a coincidence that surveillance experts found statistically improbable. When the cameras resumed normal operation an hour later, no technical explanation could be found for the widespread malfunction. The investigation revealed that Jill had been followed by unknown individuals in the weeks before her death. Her fiancé, Dr. Alan Farthing, reported that she had mentioned feeling watched during public appearances. She had also expressed concern about a blue van that seemed to appear near her various locations with suspicious frequency. Police searches never identified this vehicle or its occupants, despite Jill providing a partial license plate number. Foreign intelligence services showed unusual interest in the case, with representatives from several European agencies making unofficial inquiries about the investigation's progress. This international attention suggested that Jill's murder had implications beyond a simple domestic crime. Some investigators theorized that her journalistic work had inadvertently uncovered information that posed a threat to powerful interests operating across national boundaries. The modified ammunition used in the attack was eventually traced to a batch that had been reported stolen from a military facility in the Balkans several years earlier. The theft had never been solved, and the weapons cache was believed to have been acquired by criminal organizations with connections to war crimes and international terrorism. This discovery linked Jill's murder to a broader network of criminal activity that spanned multiple countries and involved sophisticated operational capabilities. Perhaps most disturbing was the revelation that Jill had been working on a documentary about unsolved murders of journalists across Europe.
Her research had identified a pattern of assassinations targeting media figures who had investigated organized crime and government corruption. The documentary was never completed, and her research materials disappeared from her office following her death.
What do you think really happened on that quiet London street, where a beloved presenter was silenced with such professional precision? Subscribe to uncover more cases where the official story leaves the most important questions unanswered.